When's the last time you opened any social media platform and didn't see something about HRT or hormones? If you're a woman in midlife, you know exactly what I mean, right? The algorithm is targeting us. I hear other women talking about this. All I do, everything I see is eat more protein, get your steps in, get on HRT, right? All the things that we need to be doing in this stage. But honestly, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I'm so glad that we're having conversations about perimenopause and menopause and what's going on in our knowing that we can actually do something about it. Because 20 years ago, women weren't doing a whole lot about it, right? In the early 2000s, something called the Women's Health Initiative came out, and essentially what happened was we got scared. They looked at the data, and there was this association that was made between hormone replacement therapy and breast cancer. And a whole generation of women were not prescribed HRT because of this fear, right? Um, oh, I can't go on HRT. I just have to suffer through. And because of this, not only were women scared off of it, but doctors were. I mean, I can relate to even 10 years ago when patients wanted to be on HRT going, oh, seeing this black box warning pop up, right? That there's this clot risk, there's all this stuff that, okay, do I really want it? Is it really safe? I'm not really sure whether I should be prescribing this to patients. And so again, a whole generation was missed. My mother was in this generation, right? And I talk to women all the time who are like, yep, I just didn't take anything because I thought basically it's going to give me breast cancer. But the newer research has shifted the conversation, right? We've gone back and actually looked at the data from the Women's Health Initiative, and that association that we thought was there is not there. It's not blanket all HRT, right? There's certain types of HRT where there's higher risk. And to be frank, right there, if we look back at the data, there's also an association with things like inactivity and obesity and smoking, right? There's other risk factors. It's not all just HRT causes breast cancer. So now the tide is shifting, right? Now, when the conversation is shifting, women are onto it. We know that HRT can potentially help us, especially women that are even in perimenopause, not just in menopause and experiencing hot flashes, which is kind of how it was prescribed before. Is if you were having hot flashes, then we could put you on HRT. But I think one problem now, we're shifting, the pendulum is swinging, and I think we'll see this wave of women getting on HRT, which is great. But where I think women get set up for failure is you see all these posts. I got on HRT and I dropped 10 pounds in a month and I feel so great, right? Women get set up for failure thinking that HRT is going to be the answer to all our problems. And if we just get on HRT, everything will change. And honestly, I wish it would be that easy because that would be fantastic, right? It would just be like, all right, we got it. Just put everybody on bioidentical and they're going to be great. Everyone's going to be just fine. The problem is if just hormones were the answer, why do so many women not feel better and they're on HRT? Or even some women get on HRT and feel worse. Why is that? Some women, yes, feel amazing and their sleep improves and their hot flashes go away and they have sex drive again and they lose some weight and they have more energy. But some women are still struggling. They're gaining weight. They feel inflamed. They have anxiety. They seem to be more sensitive and they're not getting the relief that they thought HRT was going to give them. What explains that difference? What I believe explains that difference is genetics. This is Her Genetic Edge with Lori Aikman, a podcast helping women make sense of hormones, genetics, and the midlife transition through practical conversations around health. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your care. When we were younger, our hormones kind of were a buffer. They were this piece of resilience that we had. When we were younger, we had, essentially higher levels of estrogen and progesterone than we do in perimenopause and postmenopause for sure. It provides this sort of, okay, we can kind of weather the storm. And granted, I know I was a woman, in my 20s, I had hormone imbalance. So I know not everyone, some people had imbalances earlier in life. But when we are premenopausal and hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone are at higher levels, let's say high level overall. They're at higher levels than they are when we're postmenopause. It just makes we can weather the storms a bit easier. But when perimenopause hits, when that midlife transition starts happening and our hormones generally start declining, both progesterone, then estrogen, and sometimes testosterone as well, we lose that resilience. What I've seen is that there could be imbalances that have been there that your body was able to compensate for, but now that you're losing that buffer of your hormones, it kind of seems like all of a sudden I can't sleep. I'm experiencing anxiety or experiencing insomnia. All of a sudden I'm having this anxiety that's not me. All of a sudden I'm having this inflammation that's not me. All of a sudden I'm gaining weight even though I'm doing everything like I used to do. And so women can feel like their bodies change overnight. And I've seen this. I've been in practice as a nurse practitioner for nearly 10 years outside of the hospital. I was working in the hospital prior to that. And everything I knew to do from a conventional standpoint in my traditional training and, as a nurse practitioner, I would see women in that what seemingly their midlife transition come in saying, my body has changed. This is not normal. This is not me. Something is going on. And I did not know how to assess really what was going on with them. There was this gap between traditional medicine, that what I was trained to do. I will say it that way. I don't want to, will not point the finger today, but how I was trained to assess somebody, and then what was going on with them. There was this disconnect. There was this gap where we weren't figuring out, okay, what's going on. And what I think is great is we're seeing that gap narrow now that HRT is back on the table. Because yes, 100%, when those hormones start dropping, as I just said, we lose that resilience. So bringing those hormones back up to optimal levels can be a huge help. But in now practicing functionally for some years and prescribing hormone replacement therapy, there's another pattern going on. It's what works for one woman doesn't work for another. And I think this is like obvious, right? It's like you and your sister even do a diet and you get different results. You and your friend are on the same HRT, but you're getting different results. You're taking the same supplements, but you're getting different results. And I believe the answer lies in your genetics. And I believe it's in the genetics. Yes, of course, there is a component of what we are doing. But I think that doesn't explain it all, right? I don't know if you can identify with this, but I can. I think there's a tendency for the woman to be blamed when she, seemingly follows the plan but doesn't get the results, it's there tends to be that blame of, did she really do it? Is she really being honest? Did she really follow through on the plan that we set for her? Right? And there can be this, especially, unfortunately, especially many providers, I think, can maybe not outright blame the woman, but essentially it is kind of suggested, well, you must not have done it correctly, right? And there's this blame. I can identify that with that 1000%, based on my experience of weight gain in my late 20s, which I'll tell that story another time, or my early 20s, but I will tell that story another time. But I believe that the answer really is in the genetics, because when it comes to hormones, the thing is your hormones have to be made by your body, unless you're postmenopausal and then we're like giving you hormones. But your hormones have to be made, number one. Number two, they have to be like moved in the body. They have to be transported. So let's say your estrogen, progesterone get made in the ovaries, but then they have to be moved to all the cells in your body. Then when they get this to the cells, the receptors on the cells that like cause your hormones to have the effect that they do on the body, we've got to have your cells have to receive the hormones at the receptor level. And then the thing is, hormones have to be broken down in the body and then cleared, or you could say that detoxed and then removed. And the thing is, genetics influence every step of that process, right? There are genes that inform the production of hormones. There are genes that inform the transport of hormones. There are genes that affect the receptor sites on the cells. There are genes that affect there's a lot of genes. I want to say that too. That's a huge, we'll talk about that in another episode, but there are a lot of genes that affect how your hormones are detoxified. That's one of the biggest bottlenecks I see in women. And then there are genes that affect how your hormones then are cleared. And so, yeah, genetics affect every step in that process, which is, I believe, why we see that variation, why we see two women take the same HRT and they get different results. All of those genes cause some women to metabolize estrogen quickly. Those genes cause some women to metabolize estrogen more slowly. Those genes affect and cause some women to be more sensitive to hormonal shifts. Some women don't detoxify as efficiently. So this is why HRT is not one size fits all. And I want to point out, I'm definitely very pro hormone replacement therapy. Of course, there's nuance. Of course, you have to look at your individual risk factors and decide if that's the best thing for you. But the truth is, if we look at the data, and newer data is coming out that backs this up, when a woman in that stage of life, in that midlife transition, optimizes her hormones, so keeps those hormones from dropping and keeps them at the levels that we may have when we're in our younger years, there's three big things that happen. There's an association or a decreased risk for heart disease, especially when we start early, like I'm talking in our 40s. There's a decreased risk for osteoporosis and osteopenia, especially when we start early, not when we're 60, 65, and we see where osteo have brittle bones. And then there's a decreased risk of Alzheimer's and dementia and cognitive decline when we keep those hormones optimal. And the big thing is, those are three things that actually kill women later in life. I mean, women do, if we want to bring breast cancer, if we look at heart disease, especially, number one cause of death in women. So yes, HRT is definitely going to be on the table. HRT, the wave is coming back, right? We're going to see so many more people, women going on hormone replacement therapy. And I believe it should be not just for control of symptoms, it's to extend her life and her quality of life. But the nuances, we've got to understand that there's some genetic variants that are going to affect how our body responds to those hormones. And those nuances are going to help us then feel the way we want to feel and get the results we want to get. So if you have been on HRT and you don't feel like it's working for you, what I want to tell you is that you're not the problem. Your body is not broken. It may simply be that your body processes hormones differently than someone else does. The thing is, your genetics are not your destiny. Your genetics are not a diagnosis or a sentence, but we can look at genetics and really personalize our care. We can look at genetics and see patterns in how women process these metabolic processes happen in a woman's body and why things like fibroids are showing up, or PMDD, or PCOS, or are even a cancer risk, right? And my conviction is that this is the future of medicine. The future of medicine will be personalized to our genes. But right now, what we can do is, you're listening to this podcast today, you're on it, you're already aware, you're ready to take charge of your health. And the beautiful thing is, we can actually look at your genes. We can see how your genes are impacting how your body processes your hormones, and then tailor your care to that, personalize your care to that. And so if this is landing for you, if you want to find out more about how to do that, what that looks like, I want to invite you to an upcoming masterclass that I am hosting on Wednesday, June 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Now, if you're like, okay, I work at 12 p.m. Eastern on a Wednesday, no worries. What you can do is, where you're going to get access to this masterclass is, you're just going to subscribe on Substack. You're going to subscribe to my Substack. When you it's not paid. There are paid tiers, which I'll tell you about at a later time, but just become a free subscriber. And that masterclass will be hosted live on Substack, and then you can watch the replay as a subscriber. You're going to be able to, to watch it at 7 p.m. later that night, right? So I'll put the link below to my Substack where you can subscribe. It will let you know when the masterclass is starting, and then you can jump in. And we're going to dive deep on this, on why your body is not responding to hormones like you thought it would. And where's the gap? Where's the disconnect? And how can we then translate your genetics into practical things that you can do to feel like yourself again? That link will be in the show notes below. Come over, hang out with us on Substack, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to all the things the free resources that we're bringing out every week. We're going to navigate midlife together and go from just surviving the second half of your life to truly thriving. All right. I'll see you in the next episode. Make sure you register for the masterclass using the link below.